Today, I've got an exciting video with Guennael. Guennael is an ex-BCG consultant. In this video, he shares some of his experiences at BCG. You will learn what a management consultant does, what a typical project looks like, and much more. Watch this video until the end because it will give you a great advice to land a job in consulting. Hello, Guennael. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you for accepting to being interviewed today. So maybe let's start this way, okay? Can you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can hear, I'm French. I did my first master's in France, went abroad, started in Germany in IT in the late 90s. So I'm dating myself here. And then transferred to the US in early 2000. After a few years, did an MBA. After my MBA, joined a retail electricity company, TXU, which is the number one in the US. And then I kept on wondering whether I should go back to consulting, or at least give it another shot. So then after a few years at TXU, I joined BCG as an experienced hire, so off cycle. And spent a year and a half there, had an amazing time, really loved it, really learned a lot of great things. Realized it was not really the thing for me anymore though, based on my experiences, my age, etc. And then for the last 5.5 years, I left BCG and joined Samsung, where first I started and developed a business in the used phone space. And now the last 6 months, I'm a head of planning on the retail branch.
Okay, great. So you worked at BCG in the US?
So I'm in Dallas, Texas, and that's also where I was based at BCG.
Okay. And at that time, why did you decide to move into consulting?
So I had kind of tried consulting a few times before. After my first master's in France, EDEC, I had tried already Accenture, for example, and I got Deloitte. I joined a company called CSC, Computer Sciences Corporation, but not really as consultant. I was more in IT side. So didn't really make it. And then after my MBA, I tried again. I had another couple opportunities, but my kids were young and I chose the regular lifestyle so that I could still have a family life. But still, all this time, I was thinking I should try consulting. And then while at TXU, after my MBA, BCG was coming on a regular basis to the office. And so I got to know BCGers. And I really started wondering, like, I think I can have one more shot. I need to try. I need to see if it's for me or not. I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering. I have to really try. And so that's what happened. So I really tried. I studied like a madman, got the interview, studied even more, and got in. And then the rest is history. But that it really was a desire for me to know and to make sure I would not regret it. I wanted to give myself the tools to experience this and to figure out for myself if it was the right thing or not.
Okay. And basically, the last time you tried, it was because you worked with consultants as a client. And what attracted you? Like, what was?
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, I should go.
Yeah, so that last project, I was actually the main liaison between my company, TXU, and then BCG. So I was working with them every day for 4 months. And I really got close to them and I really saw what they were doing. And they come in and new company, sometimes new industry, they don't really know what's going on. And in just a few weeks, they get such an amazing understanding of the company, of what of the drivers to growth, to cost, etc. and so quickly they're able to identify opportunities. To me, that was just fascinating. And I thought, like, hey, they are smart. There's no question. They work hard, no question. But I can do that. I need to try it. So it's a bit of a game, I guess. I just wanted to see if, can I make it?
No, that's super interesting. And so many people actually don't know exactly what a consultant does. So yeah. Can you tell us, like, what do management consultants?
Yeah. So it's interesting, and there's not one single answer, because on every project you will have a slightly different activity. So let me get you an example. My first project, actually. So I was still hired. I was still at TXU. I was about to leave and join BCG. And then I get an email from BCG staffing who says, hey, G, do you speak Spanish? Well, I'm French, right? And I learned German in school. But I mean, I speak some Spanish. Why? Well, what happened was we have a project in Puerto Rico, and they thought that we could staff you because you're not American, so you speak Spanish. Like, okay, let's do that. So first week, I'm in the office in Dallas, training, learning a couple of things. Second week, I'm shipped off to Puerto Rico, which is about 2,000 miles away. And I was going to end up doing this round trip every single week for the next 4 months. Puerto Rico, I arrive. Turns out it is a manufacturing company. They are making drugs and medication. It's a company that everybody knows. And they have plants in Puerto Rico because of tax reasons. It's very tax advantaged. And so while there, so I'm a brand new consultant, and my manager in BCG lingo, it's a project lead. My PL tells me, all right, G, you are going to own a module. And what we need from you is to look at the inventory situation in their facility and figure out a way to reduce the inventory, to reduce the capital required, and to increase the efficiency of the plant. So I had done a little bit of lean methodology before, but not much at all. I did not know anything about manufacturing. I did not know anything about anything, basically. But I had my managers, they were willing to help me. I had a couple of books, and of course, I had a client. And over the course of the next 4 months, it was trying to figure out, one, what is the situation? Why do we have so much inventory? 2, do we need so much inventory? 3, how can we reduce this amount? And to give you an example, an idea, they had one facility full of materials, primary goods, like chemical products. Then they filled out a second one. Then they filled out 100 trailers outside. And when we asked them, they said, well, we don't really trust the system. So if we have any space, we are just going to order more primary goods just so we never run out. And so it was a matter of me teaching them best practices in terms of procurement. So a lot of learning on the fly, a few mistakes, but you also had your manager there protecting you and coaching you. And in the end, it was a lot of teaching too. So very interesting, fascinating. That was actually probably my best project in my BCG tenure. Loved it, but my gosh, I had to learn everything on the fly.
No, that's super interesting, and I think that's a huge part of what attracts actually people who want to go into consulting. And at the beginning of a project, how do you manage all this learning stuff? Okay, how is the learning curve at the beginning of a project?
The elephant, it's one bite. So you have to break down the problem into unique and right-sized little issues. So they had way too much inventory. Okay, ask yourself, why is that? Well, they don't trust the system and they are going to order more. Okay, why? What's going on? Do they ever run out of the problem into manageable pieces? You also figure out what you have to focus your attention on. So now you don't have to learn everything about manufacturing medication. You don't have to learn anything about logistics and procurement. You only have to learn one single thing. And at that point, then you have massive knowledge systems at BCG in every consultancy. People who've done some kind of things before. So you have some of the learnings available to you. You can contact, of course, your manager, so PL at BCG, or your partner, your principal. You can contact other colleagues in other projects, and then the web, and then you know, books on occasion. So I had a few books on that topic at home that I read quickly, and then you also have the client. And the one thing that people don't understand sometimes is they think they have to come in and be the expert. So even somebody who's 22 years old, right after undergrad or masters from school, they come in, they have this nice cap saying BCG or McKinsey or Bain or Accenture, whatever, Deloitte, and they think they have to know more than anybody else. No, that's not true. On the contrary, you have to be humble, you have to ask questions all the time. It's actually one of the main point of feedback that our partner gave us. He every time he would come, so he wasn't there full time, he would come about 2 days a week. And every time he would come, we would be in our office. And he said, you guys spend too much time in the office, you have to go on the floor, you have to see what's happening, you have to ask questions. This is how you're going to really know what's going on. So the advice I have here is break down the problem into manageable pieces and then go out and ask questions. Don't people who aren't doing this full time may not even realize because they got used to seeing it. Asking questions is key. That's how you learn.
It looks like the case interview, the famous case interview.
It is, and that's the beauty. And I know it's not really the topic today, but a case interview is the shortest example of the consulting life. You have to ask questions. You have to be nimble. Yeah, you have a framework. You build it. You have to build hypotheses, etc. Develop hypotheses. But basically, it's a mini project. In half an hour, you're doing a mini project. So that's exactly it. Yeah, absolutely.
And on average, how long is a project in consulting?
Most projects would go from about 6 weeks to maybe 3 or 4 months. 4 months is starting to be on the long side. Most projects shorter than that. Now, sometimes you have those clients who've been hiring us for years on end. But even in those companies, it's a series of mini projects. A client will not come in and say, reinvent me. They will come in and say, hey, I have an issue here, or I have an opportunity there. Can you help me? So even if a team may stay sometimes 1 year in the same place, they will do a series of projects, a series of cases.
Okay. And what's the end deliverables at the end of the project?
So the most obvious one, the visible one, is a big deck. So you picture 70, 100, 150 pages, and you just drop it on the desk, and it's boom, and people know that you've done a lot of work. But that's almost the least important one. So after, it will also depend on the kind of project. Is it more strategy? In that case, the deck is more of the deliverable, or is it more operational, for example, like this one I just described? So for us, yes, we did have a deck, but most of the deliverable really was in the teaching of the team there, helping them understand that there is a better way to do in procurement than what they were doing before, and a set of KPIs and a set of objectives that they can use in the future to keep track and make sure that they don't have so many facilities and 100 trailers outside. By the way, those trailers, we're in Puerto Rico, it's hot and humid. The material, the primary goods, they have to be dry and cool. So not only they have 100 trailers, which is a lot of money, they also have to pay for the electricity to cool this in the heat. It's just so wildly inefficient and expensive. Just there, they almost paid back, for our fees. It's just insane.
Okay. Can you tell us what a typical day looks like?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And again, there's not really a typical day, but by and large, you come into the office, to the client. So you travel, it's the 3, 4, 5. You are going to be 4 days on the road, 3 hotel nights, and 5 days working. So Monday to Friday. That's a theory. We can talk about the practice later on. Monday morning, you fly out to the client. Arrive, depending on where it is, arrive early morning or sometimes around noon, early afternoon. Drop your bags, start cranking. During the day, typically, you are going to be with the client, asking questions, making sure to validate and refine your hypothesis. Then often the client goes home. You may have dinner, go back to the office or go back to the hotel or stay in the office and create models and create slides. The deliverable. Talking about slides, PowerPoint, one of the rule of thumbs, one of the reasons why we do so many slides, because it helps us crystallize our thinking. Some of the slides we do, most of the slides we do never get out of the team, but it helps us think through it and make sure that we refine the hypothesis. But big picture, we spend 8, 10 days in the office talking to the client, sitting side by side with them, asking questions. And then when they are gone, you start really the day of work, and then you build the models, you build the slides, etc. As a brand new consultant, you are going to be speaking with your manager probably every day at first, making sure that you're on track. You fly home on the Thursday night. Friday, you're in the office, so then you get to know your colleagues. And then weekends supposed to be free. Effectively, you always end up working a little bit, typically on Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. Now, all this was pre-COVID. There is a question of what it's going to look like in the future. Right now, consultants are not traveling, they're staying home, and people realize that it does work too. So will every team follow this pattern going forward? Probably not. I suspect there will be less travel. More people working from home, maybe working a little bit from the office too during the week. But by and large, the number of hours is not going to change very much. It is a high work intensity environment. And that's also why you learn so much. And that's also why people want to do it. It's the more you work, the faster you learn, and the more valuable you become in the future life. So don't shy away from the work. The work is a feature. The work is going to help you make you better. But in the meantime, typical day, it's a long day. So some projects I was done at 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. Some projects I was done at 2 a.m. every single day. It's part of the life of a consultant.
Okay. So that's a perfect transition to my next questions. What was your favorite part being a consultant, and what was your least favorite part?
I'll be candid. The favorite part for me was being the Friday in the office with my colleagues, brilliant people, and me realizing like, hey, I made it, I'm at BCG, right? I had been trying for so long. By the time I joined BCG, I was somewhere between 35 and 30 plus, right? I was older. I was an older consultant. And I had tried for so long, it was like, oh, I'm finally here. And that was probably the favorite piece for me. That and the snacks in the office, the free snacks, and the beer once a month on Friday noon. Um, Outside of that, though, the thing I liked most was being able to come to a client and just within a few weeks finding opportunities that we knew. Finding opportunities is easy. Finding problems is easy. What's hard is finding something that would move the needle and that the client can actually implement. And that was the best part, is being able to come in and know that even though you don't stay long enough to implement everything, you still stayed long enough to identify the opportunity and bring the client through the process so that they understand and they believe in this opportunity as well. So you know that when you leave, they will act on it and they will implement. It's not every time. That's one of the dirty secrets of consulting. But when you do manage that, when you leave knowing that the client will get better, this is very rewarding. The flip side, the thing that can be most frustrating, other clients, you come in, you know what the issue is. And that happened to me a couple of times. It was in the same industry that I had just left, so that TXU electricity, retail electricity, for people like you and I, so B2B, but also for, B2C, but also for small companies, B2B. And then twice I had a client who had huge opportunities. They were my former competitor, so I knew the space extremely well. And I actually knew how to implement what they were trying to do. But one, I did not have time. It was not my job. My job at BCG was to tell them what to do. And then I knew I was going to leave before they could implement. And third, I knew they did not have the right people and the right appetite. So even though I knew the answer and I knew how to do it myself, I could not help them and I had to leave before making a difference. And that was actually by far the most frustrating to me. And that's a prime reason why I left, because I just couldn't accept that. It was extremely hard on me. You almost can help, but you can't.
Yeah, I understand. I have almost a similar story, so I really understand. Maybe one question that about experienced hire. How does it work at BCG? Like which position you can apply for?
Sure.
What are the rules?
So there are differences and similarities. Let me start with the similarities first. Once you get an interview, you will go through the same case process, whether you're a brand new undergrad or master's degree or PhD or an experienced hire, you go through the same interviews. That does not change, that's the same. In terms of differences, once you join, so first, you may not join at the same time as everybody else. It was the case for me. I joined in, I think it was March. I was the only one starting then. So it was different. I didn't have a class of 10 or 15 people with me, all going through the same issues. So I was a bit on my own. I was in between two promotions. Another difference was because I had worked so many years before. By that time, I had well over 10 years of work experience. I was probably better in terms of the customer relationship. I also had more credibility coming in because I looked like I could be a partner because of my wrinkles. People didn't expect that I was a know-nothing. So they gave me the benefit of the doubt a little more. But at the same time, there were things that I didn't know how to do as well. Like I had never learned how to pull data from the web scraping. That's not something I had known before. Also, I had learned some ways to work in industry that were not applicable in consulting. Industry, you are going to be given a project and you go back in your desk for 3 weeks, 6 weeks. And then when you come back, you say, okay, I have the solution. In consulting, the turnover is much faster. You have to do something new every day. Every day you have a new slide. Every day you have a new idea, etc. And you talk to your manager a few times a week. So the pace is much faster. And so there are things I was good at because of my experience. Other things I had to unlearn and relearn. And that I think is very typical of experienced consultants. So it was difficult for me because of how much I had to unlearn, but also because in my office, there were very few, there was only one experienced hire who had gone through that many years before, so he kind of forgot. So nobody else around me knew how to help me. And that proved difficult on me and on them as well. So it is possible to join as an experienced consultant, and some do really well. Like the guy after me, he's well on his way to become a partner. So he's done great. And for some others, like for me, it can be very difficult. There is not one size fits all. I know. I think you want to go into differences in consulting companies in the future later on today. I think a company like McKinsey probably is better at managing those experienced hires than a company like BCG or than Bain, from my limited experience.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah. That's perfect. Let's stay on BCG and learn more about BCG. Maybe first, why did you choose BCG and not McKinsey or Bain or another?
Yeah. So when I was applying, I had, by that time, so again, I had been working for a number of years, so I had friends in all three companies. And I went to ask all my friends, current and former consultants, hey, I'm trying to apply. Can you help me? Can you do can you give me some advice? Can you do some case cracking, etc.? I reached out to about half a dozen McKinsey and Bain. Of that half a dozen, one said, yeah, sure, I'll talk to you. We spoke for about an hour. I reached out to 5 BCGers. All 5 of them said, absolutely, I will do a case with you. All 5 of them gave me 2 cases. So 5 BCGers, 10 cases, a half dozen Bain and McKinsey, 1 hour of talk. Right there, right off the bat, to me, it said, at BCG, it's much more team-oriented. People really try to help each other out. Now, of course, you always have exceptions. But from the get-go, it was clear to me that BCG was going to be more of a fit for me. I'm very much team-oriented. I never look to get the credit. I don't like to point fingers. I don't like this elbowing and jockeying for position. BCG felt like much more of a fit. So that's what took me towards BCG. Turns out that's also where I got my interview because I knew so many people inside the company. I had worked with them. I was that main liaison, as we discussed a moment ago. So I got my interview there first, and I got my my offer early on. So there was no real question for me at that point. Now, they are all amazing companies. They will all bring you a lot of learning and be an amazing business card in the future life. You can't go wrong. Reasons to choose one over the other could be based on who you know, based on what kind of work they do in offices, although I don't think that's that important. But ultimately, you have to go where it feels right. To me, BCG felt right. That's where I belonged.
Okay. That's I think that's a very good answer for experienced hire. I think that this fit and cultural fit is probably the main criteria. So okay.
Yeah, and some people are lucky to have more than one top offers. Some guys have all 3. There is very few of them. Right? As of right now, you probably have 1% chance of getting an offer. Any company you get, just jump on it. There's no wrong company. They are all great.
Yeah.
You will have an amazing experience in any one of them. So if you're lucky enough to have more than one offer, let's talk.
No, yes, that's a great advice. And besides the team culture you mentioned, what else? How would you define the culture at BCG?
So one thing that struck me, and I know at least at the time it was not the same at McKinsey. It may be similar, somewhat similar at Bain. I don't know. BCG, the partners in their compensation have the first two criteria in their comp is one, how is the whole company doing globally? And two, how well do your peers, partners in other countries or in other verticals like working with you? So the top two metrics deciding how they are going to be compensated are about how the whole company is doing and how well you work with them. You can't be an a-hole. You can't be stepping on people's toes if you want to get paid. Mm-hmm. So that's for partners. This trickles down. So at every level in the company, it's very much a team focus. Now, do we have exceptions? Yes, of course. Some people are better than others at that. Absolutely. Is there be some politicking? Is there some elbowing? Yeah, that does happen. Principals who want to become a partner will not be very nice to you if you're not doing well because they want to look good. So yeah, there is some of that. Of course, there is some of that everywhere. But I strongly believe that you have less of that at BCG than you would in other companies because of the way the partners are being compensated.
Okay, very interesting. Now, why did you leave BCG?
That's a great question. So I only stayed a year and a half. Two reasons. The first one, I touched on that a little bit already. I was a little older, and by that point, I had acquired other methods of working, and it took me a while to unlearn and then relearn the BCG way. And then because I was an experienced hire out of cycle, I did not have anybody around me who could really help me through that learning path. So it was harder on me, and I struggled. Very candidly, I struggled. I had some good projects, I had some not so good projects. So that was one issue. I was struggling more than I should. The other piece is, that's also something I discussed, those two experiences where I was at a client and I knew how to implement for them because I had done it, yet my role was not that. My role was to tell them what to do and leave, which was very frustrating to me. So put those two together, and I realized, and both I and the company, because I left, it was a joint decision, realized that I belonged in an area where I could implement things. I can do strategy. I am not the best strategist ever, right? It's something I'm good at. I'm not the best. I am good at operating, however, at implementing. And I realized by doing this that where my sweet spot is to translate strategy into operations. I want to be the glue. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I left, and that's what I've been doing since then. Take a strategy and find a way to implement it. The strategy was done by somebody else. And when my team implements, I have the operator in my team working for me who are going to be the best in class. And I'm the guy in the middle. That's what I'm good at. That's my sweet spot. I could not do this at BCG, so I had to go.
Yeah, very interesting. And based on your experience, what do consultants in general end up after leaving consulting?
So many things. Some of them go into politics. Some of them, we almost had a US president from a consultant. Most of us end up going back to industry, initially doing some strategy work in a large corporation, And then after a few years, they move into a P&L role where they actually manage a budget. That's the main path. A number of consultants like to go to PE or VC firms. Mostly the younger ones who can still go to MBA. So the perfect path would be you do your undergrad, you join MBB for a couple of years, then you do a top MBA, and then you go to a PE firm, for example. That's a very, very common path. But when you look around, when I look at my my BCG colleagues or my MBB colleagues, because MBB to me is one big family, you have people in all walks of life. Typically, everybody is pretty smart, very type A. They will do well whatever they choose. You have former consultants who become writers, become professors, it's just insane. It's everywhere. Most in business, of course. Most do strat and then P&L or operations, but there are so many different choices. I think the industry, some companies don't value consultants, but most do. And most companies believe rule of thumb is 1 year in consulting is equal to about 3 years in industry. And that's because former consultants have shown that they are dedicated, they are hardworking, have shown that they can learn fast, have developed a toolkit, and will get to the answer. So even if they are thrown into something that they don't know anything about, they will figure out a solution. And that's been my experience too. And that's what makes former consultants so appealing to so many companies.
Yeah, totally agree.
And I think you're a good example of that too.
Yeah, that's true. I'm doing now strategic planning, which is a very standard job after consulting as well. Basically, you are doing consulting, internal consulting. It's close to that, I would say. One last question. Do you have any tips for people who want to learn a job in consulting?
Yes, get ready long before you apply. Too often I do also coaching on the side, just like you. Too often I have people saying, hey, I just got an interview, I'm interviewing next week or tomorrow, get me ready. Or I have people saying, can you guarantee that I will get a role? Like, no, it's not gonna happen like this. You have to be preparing long before. Get to know the companies, get to know people at those consultancies, and get really to know them. Don't ask them, hey, can you get me an interview? That's way too early. Get to know them on a personal basis and try to understand their life. And then do more case cracking over and over and over again. I studied well over 100 hours. Many of us do that. I mentioned before, you have probably about 100 applicants per position. It is extremely competitive. You can't just wing it. You have to be really good at that case exercise. You can learn it, just about everybody can learn it. It takes a lot of work. Preparing once you got the interview is too late. I started preparing months before I applied. I think everybody should do that.
I love your advice, actually. I love your advice because it's based on my experience, it's maybe the number one mistake that people do. Many people understand that preparing for the interviews, the case interviews, the fit interviews require a lot of work. And they don't want to do all this work and not being sure to have invited for interviews. Yeah. They do this mistake of let's first secure interviews and then I will prepare.
Yeah.
99% of the time it's too late.
Absolutely. And I would argue it takes a lot of work, yes, but it also takes a lot of time because some of that you just need to absorb and to internalize some of those tools. And it's not just cramming 10 hours a day. You have to sleep on it. And that process will take, for most of us, you have exceptions, but for the vast majority of us, that will take weeks and maybe even months. Now, to those people that tell me, well, I want to make sure it's not a waste of time, I will argue those tools, those that learning you acquire, you develop by preparing those cases will be useful no matter what they do in the future. I've done case interviews by applying to a bank, by applying to a variety of different jobs. Why? Well, because the guy in front of me is a former consultant, so he's going to give you a case. But even during the work, at work, those tools are important. My team always makes fun of me because I don't assume. Assuming, you know what it does, it makes an ass of you and me. I don't assume. I have a hypothesis. And then I'm going to try to figure out, is it true or is it wrong? And if it's wrong, I will develop a new hypothesis. Well, I learned this by learning how to do a case. But I use this every day at work. And that's what makes me better, because I'm not going to just go and make an assumption and say what I think or my gut says. Maybe that's the first piece, but then I have to prove it. And by proving it, my value to the company increases. And that's why I do well after. And that's why all of us former consultants do well after. So those tools you develop by learning how to crack a case will be useful in consulting and outside of consulting for as long as you work, until you are old. It's not a waste of time. It's an investment. And the value is tremendous.
Yeah, I still agree. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was very, very insightful, very interesting. So thank you for your time.
And thank you for having me. Loved it. Let me know if you have follow-up questions, if you want to do this again. Just like you said, I love this. I do this because I like it, not because I have to. I still coach, just like you. I do some seminars for universities. It's not worth my time from a financial perspective. So the seminars, I don't even get paid typically. I don't care. I like to because I've lived it. I benefited from it. I want to help others benefit from it too. For you guys who are listening, it's an amazing experience. You will not regret it. Give it a shot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Seba. See you guys.